Hey y'all, how is everybody doing today? I am super excited. This is the first podcast. Welcome to Just Jodee plus one. And today we are going to be talking with Jenna O'Malley, your soul writer, the author of this incredible series. This is the first book, Bound by Fate and Blood. It is out now and I absolutely love it. And you are too. And I cannot wait to get her into the studio and ask her some questions. So hang on. I'm going to go try and do that now. There she is. Welcome. Welcome. Hey.
Hello.
How
How are
are you
you?
doing today?
I owe you a soda
Okay.
because we kind of said it at the same time, but I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
I
How are you?
I am doing good today. Today is a much better day than yesterday. But yeah, I'm super excited about the podcast and I'm even more happy that you are my first person, my first guest. I'm so excited.
I did
Um,
not realize until just a moment ago I was the first, so thank you.
yes, you're my first. You were the person I wanted to be on first. You have been with me through so much that I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it's got to be my Jenna.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Before we get into the questions, I wanted to let everybody know there is also going to be a website for this incredible book here in the series, www.themerna'annals.com. Did I get that right? Yeah.
You got it.
And it is coming up. And there's also going to be an overhaul to Jenna's website, jennathesoulwriter.com. So you guys be on the lookout for that. And then I wanted to see if you had any other news you wanted to let us in on, maybe beforehand.
Yeah, a lot of cool things with this book series specifically. I have currently recently done two book cover reveals, one for uh, the side quest to the Merna Annals season one called The Winged Ones, which is kind of about like the comedic relief characters everyone loved. And then there's the follow-up novella to book five, Pearl and Gold, which also had a cover reveal lately. They're kind of doing a simultaneous dual release around the same time. We are in the final draft stages of that. And of course, Rachel D. Adams is being our blurb doctor and getting them together. So we'll have blurbs soon.
Wow. So they would be, congratulations. Working with Rach is
Yeah.
always fun.
She's amazing.
Amazing. All right. Well, are you ready to dive into question number one? You
Let's
are.
go.
All right, here we go. Your book explores the concept of fate. Do you personally believe in destiny, or do you think our choices shape our path?
I have a perfect example of this. If you've ever seen the movie with Kate Beckinsale and John Cusack called Serendipity, you probably know how I feel about fate.
Yeah.
Fate is not just going to show up at your door and be like, hey, dude, here's the lottery. You've got to be able to read the signs and symbols and act on them accordingly. One of my coaches, Matt Schaefer, says prayers got to be embedded in action. So therefore, no matter what you believe, if you want to manifest something, pray something into existence, you also have to put in the work. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that is definitely explored throughout season one. Ian and Neftiri think they know what their lives are.
But they
They do
don't.
not. They do not at all.
Hmm. Okay. My next question is from the About the Book. I have two about the book, and this is the first one. Bound by Fate and Blood introduces readers to a richly imaginative world. What inspired the creation of that world in the Merna Annals, and what were some of the challenges you had in building it?
The main, I'm come at the basis of everything of you've got to have a priest, he's a premise, former English teacher, go figure, once an English teacher in that regard, always an English teacher in that regard. So kind of like how an essay has a thesis question, I gave my series, my season 1, a question. And that question is, what happened to all magical, mythical, celestial, paranormal existence, supernatural creatures out there, aka Merna, immortals, werewolves, fairies, so on, whatnot, and their ability to use magic. Like, say for existence, did magic once exist as an actual, like, you know, in Dungeons and Dragons and video games or anime, zappy zap, you can actually conjure lightning and fire. Therefore, based on our own human history, where did it fade away? The age of exploration was kind of where I gave that reasoning, because of the age of exploration was definitely a mirror to modern times in some ways. So I was like, hey, we're kind of still going over these themes of, should women be in power? Should you just accept that someone doesn't look like you, but they are an okay person anyway? Those come up again and again because of the time period that magic was lost in, the 1700s.
Yeah, 1700s. I am also, surprise, surprise, it's that time of the year, so I'm having bronchitis.
You as well. I was using my inhaler beforehand, so no shame, no shame.
All right, this one, I know that mythology played a huge, huge part in the book, but what role did it really play in shaping it, along with history, in shaping the lore and the look of your world?
Everything. And this is something that my co-author for the Merna Annals RPG, Baka, and I are exploring a couple Thursdays a month with that. Literally, how does the pantheons that guide the different councils of immortals, how would that play out if you were to play this like Dungeons and Dragons? So there are 5 cultures that came and met together, and kind of logically so, we're all in the same place and time in Turkey. It's called the Artemisia Ephesus. And that's kind of the center point of where, like, the Merna lore starts brewing together. Egyptian culture, Roman, Greek, Norse, and a couple of other different blends. And then you overlay the fact that the Silk Roads runs right through that area.
Yeah.
It kind of made sense that it was an opportunity for these cultures to hide among humans in a way. And I was like, so this is history. Literally, we could have had these things and they just disappeared into humanity. So logical reasoning came
because I did notice in the book, you know, not only did we have, you know, vampire, werewolf, fairy, you know, all of that. I noticed, you know, the Turnling, that's her name. I can't think of it. The Norse.
Rochelle.
Yes, Rochelle. You know, we had Norse, we had Egyptian, you know, you have the Baron, Ian, you know, and it was just, I loved like the intertwining of all the different, you know, not even the mythological part of it, but the actual history part of it. So that was the reason I had to ask that question, because I loved that about the book.
We forget prior to the internet that there was an age where the world got super interconnected, and it was because of merchant trades largely went booming across, you know, oceans. So I wanted to acknowledge that era isn't as unalive as we think it is. I almost said a very bad vampire joke and said undead, but anyway.
Undead
vampire joke anyway.
Yes, that's a Jodie Jean joke if I've ever heard one.
A fellow whiskey acknowledges that there's sometimes okay room for bad humor, hence the winged ones. Oh my goodness.
The next really is a 2-parter, and it is about your characters. Who was the easiest character to write in Bound by Fate and Blood, and who was the most challenging, and why?
Well, since we're sticking solely to book one, if we were including book two, my answer would be different.
Okay.
Book one, solely the hardest character to write for in the long run
Mhm.
was Neftiri, because she was kind of okay being the princess in political exile and being a brat about it. She got quite comfortable there, and she didn't want to move. So there's a lot of the book where she's basically being forced to do what she doesn't want to do, and the council finally looks at her and says, "Hey, you're out of room to run." And that
Yep.
made writing for her difficult. It was actually why when I rewrote book one as part of the original rebrand a few years ago, her character arc changed the most, and actually the whole like last 5 chapters of her character arc in that book completely different. The
Okay.
easiest one to write for is therefore also Ian. I love writing for Ian. The problem with writing for Ian is he's where I get long-winded, because
Okay.
it's like literally star date, captain's log, this happened, this happened, this happened. And it's
Mhm.
like a second by second report because he is a merchant sailor
Mhm.
captain.
Yeah.
That's just his brain. So I end up doing a lot of word deletions for him.
Okay. Were any of the characters inspired by people in real life, or did they come entirely from your imagination?
Neftiri, I have known from my days of doing RPGs of various kinds as a teenager. So,
Mhm.
not her so much, but the winged ones are solely based off of a group of friends of mine that I made in 2020 during lockdown. They're called the Winged Ones because they kind of inspired me to start my own YouTube channel.
Okay.
They run a Twitch channel together called Emerald Company Gaming. They're still doing live streams over there. I, because my business and books took so much time, kind of have
Mhm.
stepped away and done my own thing. But a lot of the guys who are on there, they gave me characters to be the comedic relief, because I noticed I was missing that. And
Mhm.
when I say it's dark romance involvement, it gets darker from here, is what I mean with book one.
Okay.
Um, I do character unalivings, and I don't care that I'm collecting my readers' tears and putting them in my coffee to do more and more books. It's just the nature of what I write. If the dice rolls that way and you run out of hit points, you're in
Yep.
trouble.
Yep. Yep.
So,
Okay. Okay. That was something I did not know. That is awesome. How has the reception to Bound by Fate and Blood influenced your plans for the rest of the series?
it's been very hit or miss because I know the content of the book is very heavy, i.e., there's a lot of political things. I do not hide what I cover in my books at all. If you're not into having an open mind, my books are not the escape for you. They will make you think. Um, and I know that there are going to people either can't stand it, they can't finish it, or they love it. The people
Mhm.
who love it are literally going, okay, now I need book two because
Yeah.
I'm so emotionally invested in these characters.
Mhm.
I need to know what happens.
Mhm.
At the end of book one, you are set up to a situation to where a couple that is broken up, Bjorn and Rochelle, could get back together. And a lot of people are like, that is the only reason why I read book two. And the
Mhm.
only reason why I read book three is because of how you set up Frey and Lee for book three back in book two. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
if you enjoy watching your characters, as a friend of ours says, get snapped like a glue stick, come read my books.
I like that one. I like that. How did you decide where to start Merna Annals? Was it always this story, or did you have to revise that entry point to the series at any time?
When I first originally wrote it, there's only like 2 scenes in 2 chapters that are still this, but it was a fan fiction.
Mhm.
way back when I was a teenager. And originally then it was set in like the 1400s.
Mhm.
It's a completely different story
Yeah.
now, not only because it's in a different era, more characters that did not exist then exist now. It is way more about kind of like how Frozen is a love story about the sisters. My series is a love story, but it's also not just the core couple of the book. It's about, and you see this in book one starting, it's about the bromances, it's about the siblings. There's a group of brothers that will form by the end of
Mhm.
book one: Frey, Vovry, and Ian. By the end of book two, you would think that they grew up adopted together,
Mhm.
not just spent the last 6 months adopted together.
Mhm.
It's very much exploring soulmates and fated mates in the context of not just your romantic partner, but also the other friendships and siblings you have
Mhm.
around you, or who do you consider a parent. That's book three.
Okay. While we're talking about siblings, Abrexus, how was it to write him um, as as Nefertiti's brother?
To clarify, Neftiri and Abraxas are very much that stereotypical older sister has what the younger brother thinks he should have as a royal.
Mhm.
They are a matriarchal society in a time when patriarchy is the fad. And he does not like that so much. Oh goodness. He does not like that so much, especially given the fact that they are from a line of pharaohs.
Right.
Their their great aunt is Cleopatra.
Cleopatra. Yes.
Yeah, so they have a direct tie to a royal throne in the human world. And he's none too happy that they carried on that whole matriarchy thing, and he wants to end it. That's his big issue, to the point that he unlocks magic that is unsacred throughout the other books, and it comes back to bite him in his patootie hard. He pays the ultimate price for it in the end, though, and has a redemption arc coming up in a side quest novel.
Okay. Okay. That's exciting to know.
He's fun to write for,
Is
but
he fun to write?
again,
Yeah.
well, in the original rendition before I rebranded, he was a sixth POV and he got cut, which I think was better for the books in the long run.
Okay.
But as other author tubers, even our Sarah Cannon emphasizes, when it comes to looking at your protagonist, Neftiri, versus your antagonist,
Mhm.
Abraxas, they kind of have the same beliefs on the world, they're just different perspectives.
Yes.
And Abraxas is definitely a question of how deep into the darkness of the abyss is he going to dive before he's happy, and rock bottom and then some is the answer.
Okay. All right. That was my question on him. Are there any characters or subplots you initially planned to include in the book but decided to save for future books in the series? So you kind of just answer that. Abraxas is going to get his own little, side quest redemption
Kind
thing
of.
going, but is there anybody else?
Yeah, his name is Elias. That would be, you meet him in book four. That would be, spoiler alert, a certain book one couple's son, Ian and Neftiri's son. It's going to be that he will have to deal with the the next generation,
Okay.
has to deal with the messy package that they were given. They were
Hmm.
given a pretty gift, but it was very
Yeah.
messy. And their parents are all very much by the end of book five, like, this year is over. Kind of sweep it under the rug and act like it doesn't exist until it comes up again applies,
Hmm.
just because we need a break. And the kids end up having season two for a reason. And that's why this series is, I thought I stepped into a trilogy, not 20 books, put it that way.
Yeah. Is when you're writing to that end, um, do you ever are you a pantser or a plotter or somewhere in between?
It used to be a staunch plotter. Book 1 and most of book 2 and most of book 3, I had my 20,000 word outline, bullet pointed paragraphs, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, I've actually opened up and changed the way I write considerably. I now use tarot cards and dice both as part of my writing. So I'm kind of in between. I do pre-plan things, such as I will go through and draw the entire tarot cards worth of character arcs and figure out a loose outline into a kind of save the cat focus.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also much more willing to, thanks, Frey, if a character says, I have a better idea, especially if they're a secondary character and I'm not really paying all that much attention to them until I'm, mid-writing. If there's something that presents itself as a better idea, I'm okay opening another document and say, let's explore this for a day and see what happens. So I kind of equate it to like, I know the address to where I want to go, but I'm okay taking all the detours it needs to get to that point on my GPS.
Okay. So you really know your front, your middle, and your end, and you just weave from there.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And
so you always know the ending.
I cannot, if it's a series, I cannot end, say, book 1 until I know how book 2 starts. So for book 5, writing the end to that was difficult. Okay. I haven't written the beginning of book 6 completely or decided what order to do book 6 in completely yet. So book 5 was a challenge in the end, right, for that. It wasn't a muddy middle. It was a muddy ending.
Okay. So it's kind of like you have to have that parallel in between, like you have to have the books here and here to understand. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Correct.
Gotcha. This is a question from the About Your Publishing Journey. If you could describe your writing process for this series in 3 words, what would they be? It's a fun one.
I keep coming up with 4 words.
That's okay. You can do that too.
Let the dice roll. Okay. Let whatever happens, happen. The witchy woo-woo way to say it, so mote it be. It is what it is. I very much believe that to a degree, writers are healers. We write the stories we write because not only we wanted them, but because sometimes humanity needs certain tales. And I very much feel like I'm not necessarily channeling, but it feels like a download. Like I see it in my head and I just write it. I do have instances where I'm able to do that. So sometimes I very much have to be the reporter, not the director of the scene. The characters will tell me, shush, this is what I'm going to do. I got to listen. I had to learn that lesson the hard way. I had to learn to intuitively let the story tell it through them, not me.
What is the most healing book you've ever read? And what is the most healing passage you've ever written to that end?
Most healing book I have ever read. Ooh. Not necessarily book, but Anne Sexton's collection of poetry, definitely so. I was a literature major in college when I found her work, and she's been with me since then. There's a line of hers that comes out from one of her book of poems that says, akin to, basically, if you listen to your soul, your heart, it will tell you what to do. It'll tell you what to write. It'll tell you what to say. Be true to you. That has stuck with me my entire writing career. And the most healing book I would say it would come out in would probably be book 3 or book 5. And that's just because of what Frey and Lee go through to heal themselves for themselves, and therefore as a result of each other, and therefore as a mirror, you see Ian and Neftiri learn that same lesson, but in a different way. And I would venture to say that I cried the most writing those books.
Okay.
And I believe that if I cried, the readers might cry.
Yeah. So not only did it heal what you wrote, didn't just heal the one set of characters, it was able to heal another set as well. That is uber cool.
Yeah.
Uber cool. All right, last question, and it's a fun one. It's fun. If you could spend a day with one of your characters, who would it be and what would you do?
His name is Frey. Everyone who's read my book series says he's a hoot.
Yes.
He very much reminds me of a brother I lost. If I were to say any of my characters were based on my brother George, it would be Frey.
George. I was thinking must be George. Yeah.
I'm the crazy uncle brother type older person who will not only get your butt into trouble, but we will have fun getting out of it together. And I just would like to go hang with him in season 2, which takes place closer to this era, about 10 years ago. He owns a bar in Baltimore, and I would love to just be a common patron sitting at his bar and just listening to him tell wild, crazy stories that could have fit in any era, and you have no clue that it took place 300 years ago, and you're thinking it took place 30 years ago.
He was my pick too, and I kid you not, I wanted to go on a pub crawl with him, and I didn't know that about book 2. I wanted to go on. I was like, I want to go on a pub crawl with Frey.
In one of the spin-offs called Slices and Sheets, it catches up with the couples kind of like from the late 1600s to now in their daily lives. And one of the shorts in there featuring Frey and Lee is the opening of his bar, Frey's Flask. It is a LGBTQIA friendly sports bar that patronizes the local area sports, but it also patronizes, because if you know anything about Frey, he likes to make the stuff you would serve there. Yeah. It features all of his bar-like creations, his brands, local brew brands and whatnot. And you very much see how hanging out with the merchant Ian makes him a business person in the long run.
So it's like their personalities kind of overlap and teach each other everything they need to know.
As to get brothers normally do.
In present, exactly. Exactly. Well, that is the end of my questions for the day. This was amazing. This was so much fun. I'm going to be giggling for the rest of the afternoon. It was absolutely wonderful. Thank you all for being here and for coming to our first podcast for Just Jodee +1, Miss Jenna O'Malley, our soul writer. And remember, you can find anything and everything about her at where, Miss Jenna?
Either www.jennathesoulwriter.com and soon www.themernaannals.com. Their merger or merch is happening.
Awesome. Awesome. I am so looking forward to it. And again, thank you so much for being here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. You're just the best. All right, guys. Thank you. We will see you again. Or I will see you again next week with another person of interest. And I hope you come and hang out with us then too. I love you. Love you. You know what I'm going to say before I say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. I may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I'm a particular group of people's double shot of whiskey. And I'm so happy and I'm so glad that you came and hung out with us today. And remember, I love you guys so much. Thank you. Bye.